Well, welcome everyone. Dan Wycklendt here with you, Executive Vice President of First Pathway Partners. And I'm really excited to be here today with Bob Kraft, our chairman at First Pathway, and Michael Haith, CEO of Teriyaki Madness. And what we're going to do today is explain to you how First Pathway and Teriyaki Madness both came about, their history, their future, and also how the two came together. And I'm going to use Bob and Michael to kind of explain that to everybody. And we've been really excited about the partnership with Teriyaki Madness. So this will be the first time we've come together in a webinar to explain it to those that have been very interested in how our model works, what we've developed together, and how the growth going forward is going to be very important for both companies. So thank you everybody for attending. If you do have questions, I will be taking those throughout the presentation. There is a chat box available. So if you do have those questions, feel free to enter them in the chat box. As someone's talking, I can look at those questions and try to fit them into the conversation as best as possible. So we appreciate everybody's attention. And if you are interested in a rebroadcast of this, we will be offering that later as well. So first of all, welcome to Bob and Michael. Thank you both for joining me today. We're very excited to have both of you. And we're excited to take this opportunity to get to know both of you better, both of your companies, and again, the partnership between the two of you. So thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you.
Bob, maybe I'll start with you. Could you maybe give an intro to First Pathway Partners, yourself, how you came about founding First Pathway Partners? I know both you and Michael are great entrepreneurs. So understanding your background and how the two of you are very similar in that way, I think would be helpful for everybody on the webinar today.
Yeah, sure. I'd be glad to. Thanks, Dan. And Mike, thanks for joining us too. And we'll talk about the partnership and Teriyaki Madness, but we're honored to be affiliated and working with you on this project. My background is in business. I'm not an attorney. I certainly was never involved in immigration prior to 2008, but up until that time, I was founder of a number of companies. I've served on publicly traded boards of directors internationally. I've been doing business internationally my whole career, which spans 45 years. In 2008, First Pathway Partners was founded. Originally, the idea was to draw investment to the state of Wisconsin to drive economic development in what we believe is one of the finest regions of the United States, and to put together a EB-5 program that combined good business practices with vision and certainly with the client at the foundation with respect to helping them achieve their immigration goals and return capital to them. So we began in 2008. We've been involved in over $1 billion worth of economic development. We've branched out from Wisconsin. We operate in other states now. And we just completed a very large project in the Los Angeles area at Disneyland, which we're very proud of. And we have one of the better track records in the EB-5 industry. We moved into E2 in addition to EB-5. So we really think about immigration through investment and try and provide a wide platform or opportunity base for investors that are interested in coming to the United States based on their circumstances, their objectives, and their goals. In 6 years ago, we've always been involved with IIUSA, which is an international association which represents EB-5 practitioners around the world. I became a member of the board of directors about 8 years ago. And for the last 4 years, I've served as president of the organization, which is really a tribute to the job that First Pathway Partners has done in our interest in helping advance the benefits of EB-5 and make sure the business is run properly to protect the investor. We've always felt as a company and as an association that if you keep the investor uppermost in terms of helping them meet their goals, do it professionally, efficiently, and help them achieve what they would like, that's the most important thing, and everything else kind of follows on from that. A couple years ago, we began looking at other opportunities beside traditional hotels and commercial buildings for EB-5 and E2. And we were fortunate enough to meet Michael Haith, and we'll talk about how we ended up partnering together. But I'm pleased to be here. We're very proud of our track record as a company, and we're very honored to be affiliated with Michael Haith and Teriyaki Madness.
That's great, Bob. Thank you very much, and really appreciate it. Michael, what about TMAD? Maybe you can give us a little background on Teriyaki Madness, how you came about Teriyaki Madness, and how you've helped it grow into what it is now.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. Teriyaki Madness is a business model that really focuses on the fast casual space. I've been in franchising and restaurants my whole career, which is now about 25 plus years. And I've built other franchise systems with the goal of really helping people go into business for themselves. I discovered Teriyaki Madness about 7 years ago. Sold all my other companies to focus on a business model that actually works, and it actually works really well. It's a great investment with a high return of investment, and that's really what I've been looking for my entire career. Something simple to run, something that was very timely, where we could invest in technology and we could invest in what I saw as the future of the restaurant industry, and create an opportunity for small business people to own something that works and be able to expand if they'd like. A couple of years ago, we saw an opportunity to manage Teriyaki Madness for investors. And we've grown significantly by allowing people to buy a franchise in Teriyaki Madness and then do everything for it, make it turnkey, do the construction, do the real estate, hire the people, and actually manage day to day. And our relationship with the investors is reporting. It's working collaboratively to make sure that the business model is successful in achieving the investors' goals, and really creating a relationship of trust, a solid investment that's safe, that really focuses on something that people are always going to need, whether there's COVID or there's a recession, and that's food. And it's food that is healthy, that's delicious, and it really does resonate with the customers. We've got amazingly loyal fans. We'll talk about our First Pathways relationship, which we're honored to be able to partake in, and it's working really well. I think we opened a shop yesterday, and we're opening one tomorrow.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did, and maybe that's a good segue, Bob, into how this relationship came about. I know. Through our investors how many investors do we have now? From what countries, Bob? How many countries would you say?
Well, we're over 40 countries that we're actively engaged in, and we're proud of that. Our reach is global.
Yeah, so with that global reach, I know we had a lot of interest, and you had heard from a lot of investors that they were interested in some other type of model for EB5. Maybe you could explain that.
Yeah, some of the, it's interesting. And I've been doing business overseas since the mid 80s. Every country's different, and every country has different objectives from a personal standpoint, different expectations, and also different likes in terms of business and understandings in terms of business. So, one of the things we saw, the EB5 business has been pretty heavy in hotel offerings over the years, and that's worked real well for the industry. And certainly we've been probably broader in our offerings than a lot of regional centers, but we've had a large presence in hospitality. But from our travels overseas, and I've spent and all our staff an inordinate amount of time overseas in market talking to people, and not everybody was interested in a hotel. They'd like to be more hands-on. They'd like it to be smaller. They like to have a little more what they feel is control, and many of them like fast food, fast casual food franchise opportunities. So that kind of put us on the journey to look at different creative ways to target specific countries, and even within certain countries. I mean, you've got different segments of the population that come from different backgrounds that achieve their success from a wealth standpoint through business, maybe through family, maybe it might have been through real estate holdings, but the driving factor behind all, they'd like to come to the United States. And but the matchup, is important in terms of providing a project or an opportunity that fits with their understanding of how things operate, understanding the business model, and being comfortable with it. So we knew we needed to expand our offering, and we looked at hundreds of different franchise opportunities around the country. We do operate outside of Wisconsin and a number of other states, and we were looking to expand our reach nationally. And we came across Teriyaki Madness, and we went through extensive due diligence. And I must say, they actually did deeper due diligence on us, or as deep as we did on them. I was very impressed with the psychological testing we all had to take, which we participated in gladly. We learned a lot from the process. We visited with Michael and his team in Denver. They visited with us in Milwaukee several times. It took us a while to get there, but it was a great process. And we found an organization that offers a very interesting opportunity for investors and has a very similar culture to FBP. They have a great track record. They do the right thing to support their franchisees. And again, it was a process, but my compliments to Teriyaki Madness, and we've been more than pleased with where we are right now. And certainly there have been some challenges like there are in any startup, but we've learned a lot, and we've been very impressed with the openness and the kind of put the shoulder behind the wheel attitude that they have, which is very similar to ours, and their transparent approach to things.
Yeah, that's great, Bob. And I know when we were looking, one thing that stuck out to us was the amount of awards that Teriyaki Madness has won. I mean, Michael, I think you've pretty much won just about every franchise award that I'm aware of that's out there. So, when you look down the list, I remember the Fast Casual Top 100 Movers and Shakers, Restaurant Business Magazine. We read all these articles, and that's something that led us to you. What makes Teriyaki Madness so unique in the franchise world that it keeps not only winning awards but succeeding?
Oh, wow, that's a great question. I've never been asked that question before. We just focus on the basics. We focus on blocking and tackling. We focus on the franchisee and the investor, making sure that we have long conversations about expectations, what we can accomplish. And I think Bob said it. We are very transparent, and we focus on success. And if that means throwing everything we have at it to make sure that we fulfill our promises, that's really our culture. I agree. We both did a lot of due diligence to make sure that this was a good match. To be very honest, we did due diligence on other similar type groups, and there was no one who had their act together as legally and professionally like First Pathways did. We didn't enter into this partnership lightly. We do believe that we're going to see a lot of continued success. The world is in a bit of turmoil right now, but the one thing that we can count on is people doing what they say they're going to do. And that's a big piece of a partnership with anyone, whether it's investors or it's with First Pathways or many other investors and franchisees around the country.
Yeah, and I think I've said it to you both before. You and Bob, as an outsider here to looking at the both of you, I mean, minus the amount of facial hair, you do have a lot in common. And I think that's what's made this relationship so exciting, because when you're dealing with like-minded people, it obviously makes business a lot easier. So for a First Pathway Teriyaki Madness relationship, it seems like the perfect match. But, Michael, maybe you can explain why a total madness model, which we'll get into later, where First Pathway kind of manages these operations from the EB5 side, from the asset management side, in relationship with TMAD is good for our investors. Why is TMAD a great investment for a foreign investor, immigration aside?
Well, it starts with trust. And if we can go ahead and provide as much transparency and reporting and collaboration and communication as possible, so you learn to trust us, and it's a recurring theme with everything that we do, is to ensure that all questions are answered before transaction, after transaction, and building a relationship so everyone can meet their expectations. Being able to build that trust, being able to build the relationship, and feeling like one's investment is not just one person who cares about it. Actually, everyone involved cares about the relationship and how the investment turns out. That's really a key component to our culture and what we do. We can get a million awards. We can get a whole lot of accolades. We're seeing amazing growth, but at the end of the day, it's just doing what you say you're going to do, creating a business model that actually works and fulfills or exceeds the expectations that were set.
Yeah, and I think that makes a lot of sense. And from an investment standpoint, it makes sense. But from a management standpoint, I think Bob, maybe you can touch on this. When you were talking to the investors that were looking at First Pathway and our franchise model as an option, these are high net worth individuals for EB5. They don't have the ability to spend time on operating and managing a restaurant. Maybe you can talk about the attraction to Michael and his group from an EB5 investor standpoint because of what they put together on the operations side.
Well, I think probably one of the very unique aspects of this offering are the returns for the investor. They're totally different than the traditional EB5 offering. So from folks that are savvy from a financial standpoint and also just have basic common sense, it's a very attractive offering from that standpoint in terms of dividends paid. It's totally different than the typical EB5 project. So, that combined with the reliability and the track record that Michael's team's put together, it's interesting. This COVID thing has just thrown everything, out the window in terms of what's normal and what isn't. But their sales are actually up 17% year over year, which is interesting. And, part of it is they got their hands around quickly the technology play so that from a home delivery standpoint, they automated everything to make it just very easy for consumers to take advantage of their offering. The food is delicious. It travels well. And so there were a lot of things they did right that made this a very solid offering. But I think at the heart of it all, from an investor standpoint, the category is very popular. It's healthy. It's solid from a business standpoint. And then the returns are good for the investor.
Yeah, and I think, Bob, you touched on COVID, which is a topic that, people talk about clearly daily right now. But, Michael, I'm assuming you don't have a crystal ball, but, you seem like you were really ahead of the game here in a new COVID world. Sales up 17%, like Bob said. That's really impressive. What makes Teriyaki Madness, I don't want to say perfect in a COVID world because nothing's perfect, but what has driven that growth through the new COVID reality we live in?
Well, let's go back to the 17% because I love to talk about that. McDonald's is underwater. They have a negative comp number. And most of the brands that one looks at, even in fast food with drive-thrus, which have done supposedly really well, those numbers are down. So the fact that Teriyaki Madness is up 17%, which I love to say over and over again, is a testament to the technology that we employed and the business model that we employed for convenience sake. So we forecast that convenience for the customer was where the industry was going. We have apps, we have loyalty programs, we have third-party delivery through Uber Eats and Grubhub and DoorDash and others. We have a touchless pickup system where customers actually just walk into the restaurant, grab a bag, and turn around and walk out. We've got curbside delivery. And we've got a lot of social media to drive that. That was all installed to address customer convenience, which translated really well to a COVID world where people want the same services, where they don't want to talk to anyone and they don't want to go out of their house and they don't necessarily want to go into restaurants. So it was lucky for us that it translated well. It wasn't dumb luck necessarily, but it was lucky. As businesses kind of evolve more quickly, and COVID accelerated the evolution of the restaurant industry by 3, 4, 5 years, we just were ahead of the game.
Well, that's fantastic. And, Elaine on the chat asked how long the managed models we have been open. And, we've been opening them over the past few months, which has been very interesting, Elaine. So they've been open a few months now, but I've been able to see firsthand exactly this demand that exists from people. But it's not only the model, Michael, it's the food. I mean, Bob touched on it when we went there. The food is unique. I was saying before we started this how I had I'm trying to eat a little better. I think the problem with COVID for me has been some of my eating choices have not been where they should be lately. But when I went to the Wauwatosa location yesterday, I had my first spicy chicken bowl, which spicy chicken in general has been my favorite, but I had it with just the vegetables. So I was able to make a choice to eat such a healthy option. Maybe you can explain the wide range of options available that allow people to make smart decisions, or I guess, depending on how you look at it, poor decisions when they go eat.
Right. Our point of differentiation is we're delicious food that just happens to be healthy. Versus, think about it, there's a lot of brands that say, hey, we're a healthy brand and gosh, our food is delicious. And, I don't know that that's always believable. But when kids will come and get teriyaki chicken, or they'll get even our teriyaki steak, or our spicy tofu is actually delicious. Not many people believe that, but it really is delicious. When kids love it, that it's delicious food, and parents love serving it because it's healthy. My go-to is what you described. We call it the Power Bowl. It's chicken and vegetables, and I feel really good after eating it. It's filling, and it's delicious. But the key to the whole business model is simplicity. We have 100 items that we make into a fair amount of menu items to provide something for everyone, but it's operations. Simplistic operations create operational profitability. And that's our cornerstone to our philosophy.
Well, when you talk about operations, I mean, you're talking with two people who have a lot of experience, but not really on the restaurant side. So I think one of the things that Bob can attest to that attracted us to you was your restaurant Sherpas model. Maybe you can, Bob, explain why that was important to our investors to have a Sherpa model. And then, Michael, you can touch a little on what Sherpas really is.
Yeah, I'd be glad to, Dan. Yeah, it kind of emanated from just 40 plus years in business. And we, early on in the EB5 business, we looked at and actually invested in some operating companies, which, my background was in software development companies, manufacturing, and, manufacturing companies, can be tough. You can have a disruption economically. You might lose a couple large customers. I mean, I think the old adage is that 80% of any business's revenue emanates from 20% of their client base. So you lose a couple big clients. That's just the way it is. You can have a tough year. You certainly can get through that if the business is solid and viable. But manufacturing operating companies are tough to manage. So when we moved into the EB5 space, we did a couple of those. They turned out fine. But then we moved to hospitality, where you actually had large brand knowledgeable organizations running the property, taking care of the day-to-day, and like a Marriott, a Hilton, the Hyatts, folks that everybody knows, Kimpton, which is now part of IHG, and have done very, very well. So our role was to provide asset management oversight to protect the investors. As we began looking at the franchise operation, we already knew that we don't know anything about that business, as you said, Dan. Maybe tangentially from the very minor knowledge that you gain from being involved with hotels, but it's a different animal. And I guess understanding or knowing what you don't know and then acknowledging that, and then how do you properly manage or move into that category is critical in business success. So finding an organization that had a model like Michael has was critically important, because we don't know that business, but they do. And we were convinced, and even more so now, that they know it very, very well, and they have it figured out, and they've got great systems in place. So again, we provide an asset management role, but without that, it wouldn't work. And we were, again, fortunate to find Teriyaki Madness and Michael's organization.
Yeah, I think, Bob, you hit the nail on the head. You've always said, it's important to know what you don't know. And in finding a partner like Michael with this outside the box thinking on franchises and his creation of Restaurant Sherpas, which was such a great fit for EB5 investors. Michael, maybe you could explain how that came about and what Restaurant Sherpas is.
Yeah, Restaurant Sherpas was conceived to be an operating company for folks who didn't want to work in a restaurant. Or if their situation was that they couldn't work in the restaurant, or they wanted to keep their job and own a restaurant, see what the success rate was, and then be able to make that transition. The nice thing about working with First Pathways, and conversely to what Bob said, is we don't really know your business that well. We know franchising and we know restaurants. We've got processes and systems. I think our secret weapon here is that we've got people. We've got really, really great people who have been in the business for decades, and they know what they're doing. And we all saw this business model as being something that was really different, something that was a lower investment, a higher return, and something where we could put in a management company that could look out for the investors, look out for the franchisor, execute really well from day one, and be able to go ahead and create returns that made sense to everyone. And everyone's sitting up and taking notice, and it's amazing how quickly it's accelerating. So Restaurant Sherpas, although I don't know that I've ever seen it at our level of franchising outside of maybe hotels, has proven to work really well for everyone involved.
Yeah, and with your growth model, it's important, I think, to have something like that. I think in 2019, you had awarded 90 new franchises. Is that correct? Or do I have my numbers wrong there?
Yeah, no, we're moving pretty fast. Even through COVID, we're opening 12 shops between now and the end of the year. And unfortunately, there's a whole lot of systems that are just shutting down. It's a tragedy, but for the restaurant industry, hotels are, they're having their struggles too. We just kind of are in the right time, right place, with an amazing amount of opportunities. So yeah. I'll have to knock on wood over here.
Yeah, and we've gotten to watch this process unfold. To the questions we had earlier about opening the locations. We had one open Monday. We have another one opening. We have another ribbon cutting on Thursday. When we go see these and see the numbers, coming off these restaurants right away, it's clearly, the Teriyaki Madness model, the food, what it has to offer is great. But, location seems to be important as well. What helps investors, understand that you have their back when picking a location? How does your team get involved to make sure we get the right locations and make these things successful right out the gate?
Yeah, real estate analytics. We want predictive analytics to understand not only if the location is in a good spot, but the customer demographics and psychographics have been analyzed. And we also set it up for maximizing the efficiencies of construction. How do we get it open for as little as possible, as quickly as possible, so the investors can start realizing returns as quickly as possible?
Yeah, I think that's great because that's what investors want are those returns. And, Bob, I touched earlier on the FPP's total madness model as asset management company. FPP has a history and background in asset management, and that's a role we play in this as well. So maybe you can kind of explain that to everybody.
Well, I mean, that's a critically important part of it. So we have all the pieces that have come together, but you have to monitor what's happening on a daily basis with your investments. And that's what we do. We have a separate unit that provides that service and some very talented people that interact with management and Michael's side and with the hotels that we're invested in, just to make sure that the budgets are being hit, numbers are being hit, that the right things are being done. And understanding how businesses operate, which is really all of our collective backgrounds, knowing what to look for, that monitoring aspect is really important. No business is going to be perfect. You're going to have some challenges from time to time. God knows, what's been thrown at the world with this COVID thing has tested everybody. But as an organization, we've done a real good job of protecting our investors and kind of heading in a positive direction, not without some challenges. But I mean, that all kind of goes back to keeping an eye on everything, paying attention to the details, and having that oversight with people that know what to look for, and then making sure management is clued in and can react in advance of, before it gets too late. So being in this thing full time, an awful big part of it for our investors is making sure that their investment is watched closely on a regular basis with a very professional, formalized, process-oriented oversight approach. And I mean, that's Michael talked about blocking and tackling. I mean, in business, auditing, tracking, monitoring, that's everything. And then as you gather information, you can see if you've got something that needs to be tweaked or adjusted. And, then you have the appropriate conversations to adjust, to change, to improve, or that you're in good shape and you just kind of continue forward.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And being able to invest in a business that has all these eyes on it is really important. I know that, Bob, you designed this not only as an EB-5 investment, right, for people to get that green card, but an E2 investment too, for people to get a visa through this process. So, maybe you can talk about the demand for both of those that you're seeing in the market and why those demands exist.
Well, E2 is a very interesting pathway in the United States, and it's one of the things that we picked up on market-wise and was asked of many investors around the world is if we had other offerings beyond EB-5. And so as we looked at the franchise model, we felt strongly, and we were correct, that it offered an opportunity to satisfy investors who maybe would like to get into the United States a little quicker, or maybe they did not have citizenship as a goal, or even a permanent green card, but they would come into the United States under the E2 visa program, which grants a visa for a period of time that can be renewed. The investment is much less. It affords all the rights, except you cannot vote, you can't hold office. It does not lead to a permanent green card unless you then step up into EB-5. So it can be a really good bridge for people that would like to move quickly because it's much faster than EB-5, and it provides flexibility in terms of offerings to people that say, maybe that's a little too much from an investment standpoint for me. I would like to come to the United States sooner rather than later because of schooling, or there may be a host of different reasons. This offering has that flexibility. And with treaty countries, investors can come in directly into the United States. If it's a non-treaty country, we have a relationship with the country of Grenada through a partner in Dubai. that is a very interesting program that we can help facilitate. It's, if you want to call it a workaround, but for those countries that are retrogressed or backlogged but still want to get into the United States to be able to take advantage of schooling and everything America offers, it's a very viable offering. So we just felt we needed to be a little more flexible in terms of our offerings, because not everybody has the same immigration goals and objectives.
Yeah, and on the EB5 side, these stores that opened were obviously new ones, right? New locations. Some of them were existing restaurants. Some was, I remember one was a cell phone store. So they were great locations, but they were new. Michael, I know we've been working on an E2 model that allows to invest in, other existing opportunities from other restaurants, maybe a potential Teriyaki Madness that is an existing store. Maybe you can explain how that works and how you've been working to bring the investment costs down on the E2 side for investors.
Yeah, when I talked earlier about being in the right place at the right time, and about how many restaurants are closing in the COVID situation, it has created an opportunity that I've never seen in my career. And that is all these second generation spaces that already have the kitchens mostly built out, saving a tremendous amount of money on that initial investment. The ability to get so much more bang for your buck, if you will, on the investment in a second generation space, having us do the retrofit is what we call it to make it a Teriyaki Madness, and then opening it with the staff and the operations cheaper and faster than it would be otherwise, is once again an opportunity I have never seen in my career. And I think that'll probably exist for maybe the next 24 to 36 months.
That's great news. And that's great news for the E2 investors, because again, unlike EB5 where you have to spend a set dollar amount, at least, the E2 investors are looking for cheaper options. So as you said, these opportunities exist now, and that's great. As you talk about these opportunities, I know we already spoke a little about COVID, and if you want to say 17% again, we can do that. But, I read something recently that said that in general, the online food delivery service market is going to grow by $44 billion in the next 4 years. Now, you've been working on ways to capture that clearly. I don't want to make you give up your secret sauce, but for investors, what's allowing you to help capture that market?
Yeah, there's no secret sauce. I'll go back to blocking and tackling. Have a good idea of what the consumer wants in the future. And one, that's convenience. But two, restaurants without technology, having an app or having something, the restaurant really in your hand there with your phone, that's key. I don't know if that's the secret sauce. Restaurant organizations either don't have the vision because perhaps they're older and, hey, we're successful doing what we're doing, or they don't have the resources to be able to adopt it and implement it effectively. We perceive ourselves to be a brand that is at the front of the wave, and we're already looking at drone delivery, which we think is at least 3 to 5 years. But we're there doing the research, making sure that we understand who the suppliers are or who would be out there doing it. But we have a significant research and development department that's focusing on what's next. We can't sit on our laurels as a super successful company that's up 17% in COVID. We have to see what's going to happen after COVID. And even if it's a recession, in the Great Recession, Teriyaki Madness was up 20%. So there's some pieces of the industry where folks start frequenting fast casual. It's a little out of the box. It's not pizza, it's not burgers, it's not sandwiches. It's something that they want to eat at home with their family or eat at their desk because it's healthier, or just the flavors are fantastic and it's something different and healthier.
Yeah, and you mentioned just kind of being ahead of things, drone delivery and things like that. Bob, you're pretty ahead of things too on this E2 model. I know EB5 has changed. Maybe you could talk a little about how immigration has changed in general, the changes to EB5, and how that has led some people to E2.
Yeah, I mean, I think a big driver on it was just the popularity of EB5, and some of the larger countries are backlogged significantly, which, I mean, that certainly has chilled those markets. And as I said earlier, we're in 40 plus countries, so we saw that coming as a lot of organizations did. We moved into other countries, but the people from those countries that are backlogged right now still want to get into the United States. So, we started looking at that. We became aware of the E2 program but we've been aware of it for a long time, but we really dug into it. And it's a really good program. So you can actually get into the United States within 9 months under that program. There's no limit on the number of visas that can be issued. It's a much easier process for the investor. And then once the individuals are in the United States, then if they want to pursue EB5, which many do, they can do so, but they're in the country and they're going to school and they're getting settled and buying their real estate, et cetera, et cetera. So to me, it was a very easy decision to move into it. And it gives us a broader offering than other people in the business. And it really meets the market need. And satisfies what many investors really want to look at. When the program moved from 500,000 to 900,000, that certainly slowed the interest down a little bit. We're not so concerned about that, given the U.S. program is still priced less expensive than other programs, but there was a little bit of a shock there, and then we got hit with COVID. So E2 is a very attractive offering. Based on people's personal situation, if they want to enter the United States quickly, if they'd like to do it at a less expensive rate, or maybe dip their toe in the water, if you will, to come to the United States and make sure that is a decision they want to make for long term, then they can stay under E2 and renew it on an unlimited basis. Or, and again, as I said, it's always a visa, but they do get renewed on a regular basis, no problem, as long as the investment is maintained and they meet all the immigration laws and comply with the laws of the United States. Or they can then invest in EB5 and pursue a permanent green card. And if they're backlogged, they're in the country. So, it doesn't become as big an issue in terms of schooling and other issues.
Yeah, it's interesting, Bob, because you and I were talking earlier how you kind of get it both ways, right? You have E2 investors that maybe eventually want to go EB5, but we've also been seeing a demand from EB5 investors who are from countries that are backlogged, that may have to wait a while to enter the country. E2 is such a fast option to enter. That must be fueling a lot of demand from current EB5 investors to get access to the country.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're very excited about the program, bullish on it. And we did with that what we did with EB5, dig very deep, do a lot of due diligence, and make sure we had all the right advisors, attorneys, et cetera, to do it properly. And as I mentioned, we have a partner in Dubai that's working with us for the program out of Grenada. Grenada actually is very attractive for a lot of reasons, but they have the best treaty with the United States in terms of length. It's a 5-year program. It's a very solid program. Dan, you and I went down to visit with the head of the government a year ago last August, met with all the cabinet members down there, viewed the site of the project that we're involved in down there, and we're very impressed with the commitment to immigration and the whole program, and also the close relationship they have with the United States dating back, a long time, and that's why they have the best visa program in the world. We lose the audio?
Maybe you lost me for a sec there.
Okay, yep, there you go.
Yeah, I was saying on both sides of this, it's great to have partnerships with reputable people that have managed to put this together. And it was great to take a visit down there to see the location of the hotel and the beaches. And it was great to head to Denver to have the food with Michael and meet his team there. So I think we've been fortunate that way. Michael, I guess going forward, what do you see in the years to come for Teriyaki Madness? I mean, clearly First Pathway Partners is excited to be part of your growth and hopes to bring more investors to the table for you. What do you see for Teriyaki Madness and those investors in the years to come?
Well, continued success. What we have said it earlier, we're on a very aggressive growth curve, one that we're prepared for, one that we've invested in. We're looking for more of a recognizable brand name. As we expand, we're watching our openings get bigger and bigger because people now know the name. A growing team, a growing support team, a growing focus on people in front of the wave. And I say I'm with Teriyaki Madness, and the people around me know what I'm talking about. That's really gratifying. So I know the franchisees feel the same way. We're all working to go ahead and make Teriyaki Madness a household name. And it's amazing how many of the current franchisees are expanding. They see the opportunity also. They understand that we're in the right time and the right place. And how do we go ahead and build on that?
Well, I think First Pathway is clearly excited, and so are our investors. I mean, to have the turnout we have for this event, the interest we get on a daily basis from people, this is truly an exciting model. And I'd like to thank both Bob and Michael for joining me today to discuss the opportunity here. And I know that there's a strong future for both companies in this new model we've come up with, and we look forward to opening more stores, including the one tomorrow with you, Michael.
My pleasure. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Bob.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. And Dan, thanks for moderating. Appreciate it very much.
Thanks, everybody, for joining us. I'm glad we were able to get to some of the questions in the chat box. And in the future, if you do have any questions, feel free to contact us. We'd love to help you and your loved ones find a way to access the U.S. Through this exciting program we've developed with Teriyaki Madness with Michael and his team. So thank you very much, and we look forward to chatting soon.
Thank you.